I'd started coming to the same corner cafe every Wednesday without really meaning to. It was a quiet place. 2 windows facing the bus stop, muted jazz in the speakers, barista who spelled my name right. I'd sit by the radiator with my laptop open, emails half-typed, a coffee cooling faster than I drank it. It felt like a pause between days rather than a destination. That's where I first noticed her. Not in a cinematic way. No slow motion, no perfume wafting across the room. Just the scrape of a chair as she set down a leather tote at the next table. Mid-40s, maybe older, black coat still damp from the drizzle outside. She ordered tea, not coffee, and spread out papers like someone preparing for a small war. Our first exchange wasn't even an exchange. The barista mixed up our orders, my flat white for her Earl Grey. She slid the mug toward me without looking up, a tiny smile at the corner of her mouth. "Yours, I think," she said. "Thanks," I murmured. My voice came out too soft. She didn't try to keep talking, just went back to her papers. But I caught myself glancing at her hands, small notches on her knuckles, silver ring turned inward, and then flicking my eyes back to the laptop before she could notice. Week after week, we kept arriving around the same time. She seemed like someone on a schedule. I seemed like someone avoiding one. Our interactions were limited to those small recognitions. Her remembering I didn't take sugar, me holding the door when her hands were full. Sometimes she'd make a dry observation about the weather or the bus driver striking again. Nothing special, but the kind of comment that landed softly in the space between us. I'd begun drafting unsent texts on my phone at the cafe. Messages to no one in particular, old friends, an ex, my brother, then deleting them before pressing send. It wasn't heartbreak, exactly, more like static. At 27, I'd gotten used to passing through places without leaving much of a mark. One afternoon, rain drummed against the windows harder than usual. The cafe emptied early. She was still there, reading a printout with a highlighter poised above it. I'd run out of reasons to stay, but didn't stand up. She noticed. "You're always here on Wednesdays," she said, not looking at me. "Yeah, habit, I guess." She nodded once, like she understood more than I'd said. I folded and unfolded my napkin. She capped her highlighter, slid it into her bag. Her phone buzzed. A brief hesitation, then she set it face down without checking. "You freelance?" she asked. "Trying to." I gave a small laugh. "Mostly sitting here." Her mouth tilted, half amusement, half sympathy. "Sometimes sitting somewhere is the work," she said. When she stood to leave, she paused. For the first time, she met my eyes directly, steady, searching, like she was weighing something. Then she tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear and gave a slight nod. "See you next week," she said. I watched her walk out into the rain, coat collar pulled high. My coffee was cold. I reached for my phone out of habit, and there it was, a new text, timestamped 2 minutes ago. From an unsaved number. "You don't know me, but we should talk about your wife's business trips." The screen dimmed before I could reread it. My thumb hovered. The cafe suddenly too quiet. Her empty chair still warm. The text from the unknown number sat in my inbox like a pebble in my shoe. I read it twice more, thumb poised over the reply field, then locked the screen. I didn't know who had sent it, but it loosened something in me. A slow leak of doubt I hadn't noticed building. My wife was supposed to be in Lahore that week, networking. I'd believed it without thinking, the way you believe the weather forecast. When I looked up from my phone, the woman from the next table had already left. Just a damp ring where her mug had been. The following Wednesday, I almost didn't go to the cafe. I hovered near the window at home, scrolling the text again and again, drafting a response, deleting it. In the end, I walked out without my laptop, hands empty. She was already there, seated at our usual window table. This time she looked less put together, hair still wet, no makeup, a loose cardigan over her blouse. She glanced up when I came in. "No laptop today?" she asked. I shook my head. Needed a break from pretending to work. Something softened in her expression, though she didn't smile. "Sit," she said, as if we'd already agreed on it. We sat across from each other. The barista brought my usual without asking. She slid her mug toward the middle of the table. "Try this," she said. "Chamomile and mint. Better than the burnt coffee here." I hesitated, then took a sip. You're right. She gave a small, almost secret grin. I'm rarely right at home, she said, then immediately looked down, fiddling with the tea bag string. We stayed like that, the steam rising between us. Finally, she spoke again. I used to come here with my son when he was in high school. He'd do his homework, I'd grade papers. Now he's at university in Islamabad. This place feels quieter without him. I didn't know why she told me that. Maybe she didn't either. But it landed. That must feel strange, I said. It does. Like waiting for someone who's not coming back, even though you know where they are. She folded her napkin once, then again, into a neat triangle. I caught myself wanting to tell her about the text, about my wife's business trips, about the blank spaces in my apartment. Instead, I asked, do you still teach? Part-time. Mostly admin now. It's dull. She lifted her eyes. You look too young to be this tired. I laughed, startled. 27 isn't young in my head. Feels like all the decisions are already made. They're not, she said quietly, almost to herself. Outside, rain started again. She reached into her tote and pulled out a spare umbrella, placed it on the seat between us. You'll need this after, she said. You're lending me your umbrella? Only if you bring it back. Her tone was dry, but there was something else in it, something that made my chest feel too small. For a while we sat without talking. I watched her trace the rim of her mug with her finger. She noticed me noticing and stilled her hand. Sometimes I think I talk too much, she said. You don't, I said. I like hearing you. The words surprised me as they left my mouth. She tilted her head, studying me. A silence stretched between us, not uncomfortable, but charged. I imagined reaching across, brushing a crumb from her sleeve, felt the absurdity of it. In my mind, my wife's face flickered, then the unknown number's text. She broke the silence first. I should go, she said, gathering her papers. But she didn't stand yet. She placed the umbrella directly in front of me. Don't forget. I took it from her, fingers brushing hers. Just a second, but it was like static jumped between us. She looked at me then, steady, a little sad, but not pulling away. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. I would think later, walking home under her umbrella. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The next Wednesday, the cafe felt different. Brighter, louder, as if everyone had decided to come at once. I arrived late, hair damp from running, and saw her already at the window table, except someone else sat opposite her. A man about her age, gray at the temples, leaning in too close as he talked. I almost turned around. Instead, I ordered coffee and took a seat 2 tables away. She noticed me, but didn't wave. Her hands stayed folded in her lap. The man left after a few minutes, touching her arm in a way that felt practiced. She watched him go, then looked at me, a flicker of something unreadable crossing her face. When I finally walked over, she was packing her papers. Friend of yours? I asked, trying to sound casual. Colleague, she said. Short. She hesitated, then added, he's been around a long time. I nodded. Didn't know what else to say. She reached for her mug and found it empty. I offered to get another tea. She started to refuse, then let her hand drop. Chamomile again, she said softly. When I returned with the tea, the crowd had thinned. She'd shifted to the corner of the bench, leaving space beside her. I sat, our shoulders almost touching. We spoke in half sentences. Busy week? I asked. Not really. Just, she trailed off. Her phone buzzed. She turned it face down without checking, like before. The small movement felt heavier now. I might not come next Wednesday, she said suddenly. Oh, I said. Everything okay? She nodded once, eyes on the window. Just a change. My son's visiting. Things shift when he's here. I wanted to ask if the colleague would be back, if she was pulling away, if I'd imagined everything. Instead, I said nothing. She toyed with the paper sleeve of her tea bag until it tore in two. Rain began again, thin and steady. She glanced at the umbrella still propped against my chair. You remembered, she said. Of course. A small smile. Then a sigh, so quiet I barely heard it. We sat like that for a long moment. Her shoulder brushed mine when she shifted. Neither of us moved away. I could smell the faint citrus of her shampoo, see the small line of a scar near her wrist. She turned to me, about to speak, stopped. Our eyes met. A pulse of something between us, quick and bright. My hand lifted slightly from my lap without my permission. She noticed, drew in a slow breath, and looked down. I should go, she whispered. She stood, gathering her bag. At the door she paused, glanced back once, lips parted as if to say something, then thought better of it. She left without looking again. I sat there, hands still half raised, the smell of chamomile in the air, rain running down the window like handwriting I couldn't read. She texted on a Monday instead of Wednesday. Will you be at the cafe today? No greeting, no emoji. I typed yes before I thought. We ended up walking instead. She'd needed air, she said. We left the cafe behind and drifted down the side street toward the park. Early evening, leaves half turned, the smell of wet soil rising from the grass. She carried a paper bag with a sandwich she hadn't eaten. I still had her umbrella folded under my arm. We didn't speak at first, just our footsteps, the low hiss of passing cars. She walked a little ahead, hands deep in her coat pockets. At one point she slowed until we were shoulder to shoulder. I've been thinking about stopping, she said. Stopping what? Coming to that cafe. Sitting with you. The words hung there. I waited, heart drumming too fast. Why? She shrugged but didn't look at me. It's not fair. To either of us. We reached a bench under a plane tree. She sat, paper bag on her lap. I stayed standing a moment, then sat too. The bench was damp. She didn't move away when my knee brushed hers. I don't even know your whole name, she said, staring at the path. You never asked. Maybe I didn't want to. She gave a small, brittle laugh. Keeps it simpler. I tried to swallow the knot in my throat. Do you want me to stop coming? She folded the paper bag, unfolded it again. I don't know what I want. She stopped, fingers pressed to her lips, then dropped her hand. I'm not someone you should be sitting on a bench with. I turned toward her. You're married? Her head snapped up. No, a pause. Divorced. 3 years. I nodded, staring at the ground. My wife. I trailed off, not sure why I'd started. She's away a lot. Business trips. That made her look at me fully. And I got a message. Someone saying they're not really business trips. The words tumbled out, low, like a secret I'd been holding in my mouth too long. She inhaled sharply but didn't speak. Her hand rested on the bench between us, palm up, fingers slightly curled. Not reaching for me, just open. I wanted to put my hand over hers. I didn't. I keep thinking, I said, voice almost breaking, about how easy it is to sit across from you. How I don't feel invisible. She closed her eyes for a second. Don't, she whispered. Please don't. I'm not saying I know. She opened her eyes. But it's dangerous. We sat in silence. A jogger passed. Somewhere a dog barked. Her sandwich still sat untouched in its bag. Finally she spoke again, softer. When my son left for university, the house felt hollow. I'd come to the cafe just to feel near people. Then you were there. Every week. You looked lost. It made me feel useful. Useful. I repeated. Seen? She corrected herself. She reached up, tucked her hair behind her ear. The gesture she always did when she was about to leave. But she didn't stand. I shouldn't have texted you, she said. I'm glad you did. Her hand shifted on the bench until our fingers almost touched, a breath of space between them. She didn't pull away. Neither did I. I keep imagining, she said quietly, what would happen if I let this go on? If I let myself? She didn't finish. We sat like that, two hands not quite touching, the park dimming around us. My throat felt raw. I wanted to tell her I'd been imagining it too. The warmth of her palm, the smell of her hair, a life where we both stopped pretending. She turned to me suddenly, eyes wide, as if startled by her own thoughts. What are we doing? She asked. The question hung in the air, heavier than any confession. The next Wednesday, I went to the cafe early, hoping to get our usual table. She didn't come. I watched the door for an hour, ordered 2 coffees out of habit, ended up drinking both. The chair opposite me stayed empty, coat hooked bare. I told myself she was busy, or that her son had extended his visit. But a small panic had started somewhere behind my ribs. I scrolled back through our messages. Only 3 of them, all practical. No way to know where she was, no reason to ask. 2 days later, walking past the park, I saw her on the far path. She was with someone, the same gray-templed man from the cafe. They walked close, his hand resting lightly on her elbow. She was laughing, a soft, unguarded laugh I hadn't heard before. I stopped, half hidden behind a tree, then kept walking before she could see me. I didn't go to the cafe the following week, or the week after. My phone stayed silent. I typed her name into the search bar once, deleted it. On the third Wednesday, rain pouring again, I gave in. Went back to the cafe. She was there, alone. She looked up when I entered, startled for a heartbeat. Then something shuddered across her face. "You've been away," she said. "So have you," I replied. She lowered her eyes to her mug. "My son needed me." And she stopped. "It doesn't matter." I sat opposite her. The cafe was nearly empty. For a moment it felt like weeks ago, the easy space between us. Then she spoke, voice low. "The man you saw? He's not a colleague. He's my ex. We've been trying again. For my son's sake. For mine." I stared at the table. "You don't have to explain." "I do." She folded her napkin into tight squares. "I don't want you to think." She stopped again, shook her head. "This is complicated." Hope flickered, then confusion, then a hollow feeling. "I wasn't expecting anything," I said, though even to me it sounded like a lie. She reached across, almost touched my hand, then drew back. "I thought maybe sitting with you would stay harmless," she whispered. It didn't. Outside, a bus hissed at the stop. I couldn't look at her. "I don't know what to do with this," I said. "Neither do I." We sat in silence. My coffee cooled. Her tea went untouched. She kept glancing at the door, like someone waiting to be called away. Finally she stood, clutching her tote. "I have to go," she said. "I'm sorry." She hesitated. "I didn't mean to disappear. Her voice trailed off. I wanted to ask her to stay, to tell me the whole story, to choose me, or at least to explain why she'd laugh like that with him. Instead, I said nothing. She walked out. I watched her cross the street, umbrella tilted against the rain, then disappear into the crowd. I took out my phone, opened a new message. "I keep thinking about the bench. About what you said." My thumb hovered over send. Then I deleted it. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. The chair opposite me was still empty. The rain had stopped, but the streets still smelled of it. I walked past her house twice before I convinced myself to knock. Upstairs, the light in the tenant's flat glowed pale. Her kitchen window downstairs was half open. I almost left, a strange man lingering outside his landlady's door at night. But then the door opened. She stood there in a loose sweater, hair damp from a shower, no makeup. She looked startled, but not angry. "You're wet," she said. "Come in before you catch something." I stepped inside. The hallway smelled faintly of tea and detergent. She closed the door behind me, leaning her back against it like she needed its support. "I shouldn't have come," I said. "I know," she said softly. "But you're here." The kitchen was small, a single bulb humming above us. She filled the kettle without asking, her movements slow, deliberate. I sat at the table where a rent receipt lay half-written. "You've been avoiding me," I said. "Yes." She turned the kettle on. "I thought it would make things easier." "For who?" "For both of us." Silence stretched. She gripped the counter, shoulders tight. I wanted to reach out, but didn't. Finally she exhaled. "I can't keep pretending the cafe is just the cafe. Not after the park. Not after the bench." My chest tightened. I wasn't pretending. She turned then, leaning against the counter, arms folded. "You're married. You're hurting." She searched for a word. "Older. Messier. I don't want to be another wrong turn for you." "I'm not looking for a turn," I said quietly. I stopped. The words felt too big in my mouth. "I just wanted to be honest with you. About everything." The kettle clicked off. She didn't move to pour it. "I met my ex for coffee," she said. "It lasted 3 weeks. He wanted to try again, but I realized I'd already left years ago. That's why I disappeared. Not because of you. Because of me." Something in my chest loosened, then tightened again. "You could have told me." I was ashamed. She rubbed her temple with the heel of her hand. "Ashamed that I liked seeing you, that I liked how easy it felt, that I'm the grown-up here and still." I stood, palms flat on the table. "We can stop, if that's what you want. We can forget the cafe, The bench. Everything. She looked at me, eyes glassy but steady. Do you want that? I don't know. My voice cracked. I just know I don't want to keep not saying things. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then she crossed the small kitchen, stopped a foot away. She reached up and touched my sleeve. Just a pinch of fabric, light enough to let go at any second. This isn't a solution, she whispered. I know. Her hand stayed there. My heart thudded in my ears. I kept thinking, she said, that what I wanted was to feel useful. But sitting with you, I felt seen. That scared me. I swallowed. It scared me too. We stood in the hum of the bulb, the kettle cooling. Her fingers slid down until they brushed my hand, then stopped. I can't promise you anything, she said. I'm not asking. A beat. Then, very quietly, she said, okay. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Our hands didn't clasp, but they didn't move apart either. In that small kitchen, with the rent receipt between us and the street still wet outside, it didn't feel like a beginning or an ending. Just a moment where two people finally stopped hiding. Okay, I said back. Autumn tipped into winter almost without my noticing. The cafe swapped its cold brew signs for handwritten chalkboards about warming drinks. The bus stop outside kept its same old timetable, 8:47 a.m., always late. I didn't sit by the radiator anymore. We didn't need to. On Wednesdays, or sometimes Thursdays, she and I still walked there together. Some weeks, she graded papers at the window while I sketched logos or fiddled with a client brief. Other weeks, we just shared a pot of tea instead of ordering separately. My coffee stayed black now, but I took the first sip slow, the way she did. There was no announcement. No, we're a couple now. It was more like a series of small permissions. She started leaving her spare key on my counter when she went away for a day. I fixed the loose kitchen tap for her without being asked. Sometimes, in the middle of making tea, she would reach across and touch my wrist lightly, a habit as ordinary as passing the sugar. Her son came home for a weekend in March. She introduced me at the market, not with a label, just my name. He shook my hand politely. Later, she told me she'd worried it would feel strange, but it was fine, she said, a little surprised. We didn't talk about it more than that. We still went back to the park sometimes, the plane tree now bare, the bench damp but familiar. The first time, she brought a thermos of chamomile and mint. We sat close, but not hidden. She passed me the cup and smiled. Still better than the burnt coffee, she said. I grinned back, remembering our first shared sip. Life didn't smooth out overnight. She had long days at the college. I lost a client and took on another. We argued about silly things, whether to repaint the hallway, which radio station to leave on, then let the arguments dissolve into quiet apologies over tea. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't a secret anymore, and that made it lighter to hold. One wet morning, I left early for a meeting and texted her. 8:47 bus running late. Bring an umbrella. She sent back a photo of my old umbrella propped by the cafe door with a single word. Waiting. That evening, when I came back, she was in my kitchen. Our kitchen, really, stirring soup. She looked up, hair loose, sleeves rolled, and said simply, "Long day?" I nodded, set my bag down, reached for a mug. She poured tea into it without asking. We stood there for a second, steam rising between us. She reached across and tucked a stray thread from my cuff, the same way she used to tuck her own hair. No ceremony, just that small, grounding gesture. I thought of the bench, the first chamomile, the rain running down the cafe window like handwriting. All the pauses that had led here. I never expected this, I said quietly. Me neither, she replied. She touched the back of my hand. But we're here. The kettle clicked off. Outside, the streetlights flickered on. We sat at the table, sipping tea and black coffee, the smell of soup filling the small kitchen. Nothing dramatic. Just two people who had finally let themselves arrive. Later, as she reached for the light switch, she looked at me with that same searching glance she'd given me the first day we met, steady, unhurried. I smiled back. We didn't need words for it. It felt like the sentence had finally finished.